Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and I'm so happy you're here. So, as promised, like the last video, I'm going to share a post that I made about 4.5 years ago that really relates to this dynamic between narcissistic cluster of parts and codependent cluster of parts. And really, what's the solution to them both? All right, so again, I made this post about 4.5 years ago, and the solution is self-love and self-leadership for both of them. I mean, I understand that from an IFS perspective. When I created this post, I did not yet know IFS, but what the post says is the root of both self-deprecation, which would be that those codependent, self-sacrificing parts, and arrogance, those kind of narcissistic cluster of parts, the root of both is low self-worth. Thus, the solution to both is the cultivation of self-love. I strongly still believe this. And I added self-leadership, right? The relationship between ourselves and the parts who feel low self-worth and the parts that protect them through narcissism or codependence. And then I'll go ahead and read the caption here. Let's see what I said. I said, I was watching an IGTV video by Sarah Baldwin. Shout out Sarah B Coaching. And she was explaining that many people have a reflexive boundary, either a default yes or a default no. Both are survival strategies learned early in childhood to protect oneself, but both deny the truth of our inner compass. Yes, 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 so true. Whether you have a child who's always compliant or always rebellious, they're not having their own free will. They're just having an automatic response to the lack of autonomy, essentially the rules, the authority over them. So let's see. I said, this was the first time I realized that while my reflexive response was, yes, I'll do whatever you want, which looked like self-deprivation and sacrifice, and my first husband's reflexive response was, no, I'll never do anything you want, which looked like arrogance and selfishness, neither of us thrived. Both of us were denying our inner compass. Neither of us truly valued ourselves or knew how to check in with our body and our intuition to make a decision based on our energy level, capacity in that given moment, etc. Now I understand that the solution to both of these strategies is a reconnection to our inner compass, the ability to not make a knee-jerk decision, which is what a lot of our protective parts will do, but to take the time to check in with our own needs first. What a revelation, I said. Yet, before we can even begin to truly consider our own needs, we must understand our own value. Very true. We naturally treat well what we value. And then I said, thus, mirror work, affirmations, and the words and physical touch of self-compassion have been life-changing for me. Yep, that's true. And then I say to check out Louise Hay, Kristen Neff, and Sarah Baldwin, who has a good self-love video. Yeah, so before I met IFS, this was essentially training me for the relationship between self and parts, right? I'm looking at the mirror at this person who's crying, who's feeling bad, and I'm saying, I love you, I'm here with you, right? That's what self says to our parts who are suffering. Or I'm saying affirmations like, I'm with you, you're not alone, or I'm giving myself self-compassion, that what I learned from Thich Nhat Hanh, putting my hand on my heart and saying, beloved, I see your suffering and I'm here with you. You're not alone. I mean, this to me is the foundation of IFS. This is why when I first heard about IFS, studied IFS, I said, yes, yes, this is it. This is completely it. Because at the core of IFS is self-love, is the capital S self loving on all of our parts who are feeling fearful, desperate, protective, worthless, whatever they're feeling. So I recognized that, self-deprecation and arrogance are kind of these protective strategies that we learned, that protective parts of us took on, but that beneath them at their core were parts that felt worthless. And that bringing self-love to both of these parts, the protective ones and the exiled ones, the deeply feeling ones, right, is the solution. 100%. Let's see, what did I say? PS here. PS, I realize it can be hard to see that lack of self-worth is at the root of arrogance. Arrogant behavior, however, is a compensation for a deep sense of insecurity. Those who truly know their worth do not feel compelled to prove it, right? I asked Google last night what the cause of arrogance is, and she said something like, arrogance results when someone is trying to protect their ego or self-worth. Yeah. So both arrogant selfishness and codependent giving are tragic strategies to meet the need for self-worth. Wow. Yeah. Isn't it funny? I'm impressed with my former self and how much I knew back then. But again, it makes sense that I was able to, was so receptive to internal family systems, because it was just, to me, saying all these things that I had really observed and experienced through not only the parts of me that like sought knowledge and gained tools from people like Louise Hay and Kristen Neff and Thich Nhat Hanh, but the practice of the tools and the experience inside of, there is this relationship. I remember I used to sit in stillness and just observe whatever was alive in me. And I noticed that there was something that I began to call the kind watcher, that there was this presence within me, around me, that observed and held whatever was alive in me with love. And then I started calling that source the curious and compassionate witness, because it also interacted with the suffering inside of me. So you can see there, this relationship in IFS, but we would call it the capital S self and the parts of us. And that was something I was already practicing and observing and experiencing even before I met IFS. So it was just like, yes, this is it. I know it not just intellectually, but experientially. So that's why I strongly believe still today that the solution for both parts that, well, the solution for everything, really, the solution for any and every part of us that feels extreme, that feels burdened, whether it's protective or exiled, young or old, the solution is love. All we need now is love, sweet love. But it's true. And to understand that we can have that loving relationship inside. In fact, that is where we need to get it. Another person cannot give it to us to the capacity that we need, that our young parts inside of us need. Another person can't give it to us in the way that our own self is capable of giving it to us, because our self, this localized piece of the divine, knows everything that we've ever been through, gets it completely, loves us unconditionally, and offers that resource of unconditional love and witness 24/7, right? Another person cannot possibly be available to us in that way. But if they're available to themselves and their parts in that way, and we're available to our own parts in that way, we can come together in that interdependence of enjoying one another, giving from overflow. And when there are moments when we have incapacity, physically, maybe the other person, because they've been taking care of themselves, can give to us from overflow and vice versa. And we are those strongly rooted trees whose branches intertwine and create a space for life to thrive. So I hope you appreciate that. And if you have any comments or any questions about it, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.